Okay, so imagine you're a mother
Okay.
in wartime Italy,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just absolutely desperate to protect your children.
Right.
But the lengths you go to,
Oh, yeah.
well, let's just say they're unimaginable.
Yeah.
And that's the unsettling true story we're diving into today.
Yeah.
The case of Leonarda Cianciulli,
Oh, wow.
the soap maker of Correggio.
That's a case that digs deep
You've got
into the dark corners of human behavior, wouldn't you say?
It does.
We're going to try to untangle all those threads.
Yeah.
You know, trauma, societal pressures,
Wow.
warped belief systems
Wow.
that lead to these horrific acts.
You bet.
Mhm.
And you sent over some fascinating sources.
I did.
A morbid podcast episode.
Yeah.
Ryan Green's book, The Curse,
Mm-hmm.
The Deadly Soap Maker of Correggio by Genevieve Ortiz.
That's right.
All fascinating in their own right.
Yes.
But let's start with Leonarda's childhood,
Okay.
a time marked by tragedy,
Absolutely.
couldn't you say?
A lot of violence and lack of support.
Yeah.
We're talking a violent rape,
Oh, God.
forced marriage to her attacker,
Wow.
and the coldness of her own family, and especially the relentless abuse from her mother, Amelia.
It's just,
Yeah, it paints a bleak picture, to say the least.
it does. It really does. And, you know, it makes you wonder how anyone could come out of that environment unscathed.
Yeah,
We even have accounts of her suicide attempts.
right.
And Amelia's reaction to them is just chilling.
Really is.
Imagine your own daughter
Yeah.
trying to take her life
So,
by swallowing glass.
that's awful.
And your response is disappointment that she didn't succeed.
Just a disturbing dynamic between a mother and daughter.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where the so-called curse comes into play.
Okay.
Amelia placed this curse on Leonarda and her husband, Raffaele,
Mhm.
and it seems to have taken root deep within Leonarda's psyche.
Almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy,
It is.
right? Every negative event,
Right.
miscarriages. Her husband's struggles to find stable work
Mm-hmm.
was seen as confirmation of this curse.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a vicious cycle.
Right.
You know, instead of finding ways to cope with those hardships, she's fixated on this curse. It's fueling her anxieties, warping her reality.
You'd think that moving away from Amelia would offer some respite.
You would think.
And they did relocate multiple times.
Mm,
First to escape Amelia's influence,
right.
then to rebuild after Raffaele was convicted of fraud,
Mm.
and finally after a devastating earthquake.
Wow.
Yet that fear,
Yeah.
that grip of the curse, never truly left her.
What's so fascinating is even when circumstances improved,
Yeah.
they found some stability,
Yeah.
Leonarda continued to seek out fortune tellers.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow.
This constant need for validation, this search for answers in the mystical,
Right.
suggests a deep-seated anxiety that ran far deeper than any specific life event.
It's almost as if she was looking for confirmation.
She was...
Yeah, seeking some prophecy to
Yeah.
validate her fears
Right.
and maybe foreshadow the dark path she was about to embark on.
And then, of course, the world plunges into chaos with World War II.
Right.
Leonarda's eldest son, Jeppy, decides to join the army.
Oh, God.
And this is where we see a palpable shift in her story.
Okay.
A turn towards the truly horrific.
Talk about a mother's worst nightmare. Your child heading off to war,
Yeah,
facing danger on a daily basis.
Right.
It's enough to make anyone desperate.
it is.
But for Leonarda, this fear, coupled with that deeply ingrained belief in the curse,
Right.
led her down a truly dark path.
Yes. Faced with the very real threat of losing her son,
Mm-hmm.
Leonarda turns to a twisted solution,
Okay.
the law of equivalent exchange.
Okay.
In her mind, the only way to protect Jeppy from harm was to offer human sacrifices.
Yeah.
This concept of equivalent exchange,
Right.
it's crucial to understanding Leonarda's mindset.
Okay.
It's not some fringe idea, you know? It has roots in alchemy, in philosophy, this notion that for something to be gained,
Right.
something of equal value must be lost.
But she really twisted it, didn't she?
She did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, using it to justify taking another human life.
Well, in Leonarda's mind,
Yeah.
warped as it was,
Right.
a
Yeah.
human life became the currency she needed to pay
Wow.
to ensure her son's safety.
It's just,
It's a chilling example of how
yeah.
deeply ingrained beliefs,
Right.
especially when mixed with desperation and fear,
Right.
can lead to unthinkable acts.
That wasn't just a random act, was it?
No,
Now
no.
we're talking calculated murders.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah, she picked these women specifically,
Right.
preying on their vulnerabilities.
That's what makes it all the more disturbing.
It is.
Her first victim, Faustina Setti, Everyone called her Fina.
Right.
She was a 76-year-old spinster.
Mm.
She confided in Leonarda about her loneliness,
Yeah.
her longing for companionship.
Right.
And Leonarda, instead of offering comfort, saw an opportunity.
Yes.
So she fabricates this whole story about a potential suitor, leading Fina to believe that her dreams of marriage and happiness are finally coming true.
It's cruel. A cruel manipulation preying on her deepest desires.
And then there's Francesca Soavi,
Okay.
a former schoolteacher struggling to make ends meet after her husband's death.
Right.
Desperate for work,
Yeah.
for a fresh start.
And Leonarda, the opportunist, dangles this promise of a job in another city.
It's like she was playing a role.
She was.
Right. This helpful friend offering a lifeline.
And yet, behind that facade was a cold-blooded plan.
And then there's Virginia Cacioppo, perhaps the most puzzling victim of all.
Perhaps.
This is the retired opera singer, right?
Yes.
The one Leonarda seemed to actually befriend.
Yes, Virginia was successful,
Okay.
charismatic, and by all accounts, genuinely liked.
Yeah.
It makes her murder seem almost senseless, even within the framework of Leonarda's twisted logic.
Right. You have to wonder if jealousy played a role.
Maybe.
Or maybe it was a twisted need to prove her power.
We can only speculate, of course.
Right.
But what we do know is that all 3 murders were brutal, involving an axe and a horrifying process of dismemberment.
Oh, gosh.
And then, well, this is where the soap maker moniker comes in.
It's hard to even fathom, isn't it?
It is.
Making soap and tea cakes from the remains of her victims.
It wasn't just about disposing of the evidence.
Right.
There's a deeper, more disturbing layer to it.
Right.
It was a way for Leonarda to exert ultimate control.
Okay.
To literally consume and erase the existence of these women.
And she describes it all so casually in her memoir.
Yes, she does.
Almost boasting about the quality of the soap and tea cakes.
It's chilling.
It is. And to think she even made her son, Jeppy, wash with that soap and eat those tainted tea cakes.
That's one of the most unsettling aspects of this case. It raises so many questions about Jeppy's role in all of this.
Yeah.
Was he truly unaware of the source of those gruesome ingredients?
Right.
Or was there some level of awareness, perhaps repressed, buried beneath layers of denial?
It's hard to know.
The sources we have don't paint a clear picture.
It's almost impossible to imagine being in his position.
It is.
To think that your own mother could be capable of such atrocities.
Right.
And then we have this strange twist.
Okay.
The thing that ultimately leads to Leonarda's downfall is her own attempt to protect Jeppy.
When Virginia's sister-in-law, Albertina, starts asking questions, Leonarda panics. She fears that suspicion will fall on her son, that he'll be implicated in her crime.
So instead of doubling down, instead of concocting some elaborate lie to cover her tracks, she makes a shocking decision. She confesses.
Wow.
Takes full responsibility to shield Jeppy from any involvement.
It's a bizarre turn of events, isn't it?
It is.
This woman who meticulously planned and executed these murders, driven by this warped sense of maternal love.
It really makes you question the boundaries of human psychology.
It does.
Was this genuine maternal instinct or a calculated tactic to avoid a harsher sentence?
We're left grappling with those questions.
Especially given that during her imprisonment, she never expressed any remorse. Maintaining that she did what she had to do for her son.
And she lived to be quite old, dying in prison in 1970.
Wow.
It's a story that lingers.
It does.
Long after you've heard the details.
It certainly does. But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the psychological factors, the trauma, the warped belief system. But we can't ignore the societal context, can we?
We can't.
I mean, Italy in the early 20th century is a very different place.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We need to consider the role of superstition, the prevalence of folk beliefs, and the influence of the occult. These weren't just abstract ideas for Leonarda. They were part of the fabric of her world. That shaped her understanding of reality, of cause and effect.
So in a way, you could argue that she was a product of her time.
You could.
Shaped by the prevailing beliefs and anxieties of her era.
That's not to excuse her actions, of course. But understanding that context is crucial to grasping the depth of this case. It's a reminder that seemingly irrational beliefs can have very real, very tragic consequences.
And while we might try to dissect the psychological and societal factors that contributed to her crimes, we can't lose sight of the human cost.
Absolutely.
These weren't just victims in some abstract sense.
Right.
These were real women.
They were.
With lives, families, dreams.
Faustina Setti, Francesca Soavi, Virginia Cacioppo.
Right.
Their stories deserve to be remembered.
They do.
They were each individuals with their own hopes and fears. Yeah.
And their lives were tragically cut short by this horrific act of depravity.
Their deaths force us to confront the very real, very dark side of human nature.
They do.
The capacity for evil that exists within us all.
Right.
And it begs the question, how do we protect ourselves from those impulses?
Right.
From that darkness that can lurk beneath the surface?
It's a question that has haunted humanity for centuries.
It has.
There's no easy answer, of course.
Of course not.
But perhaps the first step is acknowledging that darkness.
Right.
Understanding its roots.
Yeah.
And recognizing the warning signs.
We can't pretend that these things don't happen.
We can't.
That people aren't capable of such horrific acts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by shining a light on these dark corners of human behavior, we can hopefully learn from them, grow from them.
Right.
And strive to create a world where such tragedies are less likely to occur.
It's a tall order for sure.
It is.
But one worth striving for.
Yeah. But I think we have to wrap things up here.
Okay.
What final thoughts would you leave our listeners with today?
The story of Leonarda Cianciulli is a stark reminder of the complexities of the human mind.
It is.
It's a story that challenges our assumptions about good and evil, about sanity and madness.
And it leaves us with a profound question.
It does.
In a world where the line between those can be so blurry, how do we protect ourselves from the darkness that lurks within the human heart?
That's a question that will stay with me for sure.
It will stay with me too.
And for our listeners out there, we encourage you to delve deeper into this case, explore the sources we've discussed, and come to your own conclusions.
It really is a chilling thought, this idea that anyone, even someone we consider ordinary, could be capable of such darkness.
It makes you question everything you think you know about human nature.
It really does.
It does, and that's part of what makes this case so fascinating. It's a story that forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about the potential for evil.
It's almost like looking into a mirror.
It is.
Trying to understand how someone could commit such acts.
Right.
And in the process, maybe glimpsing a bit of our own darkness.
And that can be a truly unsettling experience.
It is.
It is, but it's also an important one.
Right.
Because by understanding those dark impulses, by recognizing the factors that contribute to them, we can hopefully take steps to mitigate them to prevent these tragedies from happening again.
So where does that leave us?
Okay.
What can we learn from the story of Leonarda Cianciulli?
Well, I think...
What can we take away from this deep dive?
I think one of the most important takeaways is the need for empathy and understanding. Okay. Not empathy for the perpetrator, of course, but empathy for the victims and an understanding of the complex web of factors that can contribute to these horrific acts.
So it's not just about condemning Leonarda. It's about trying to understand the path that led her to those actions.
Exactly.
The trauma, the societal pressures, the warped belief system. All of those things played a role.
They did, and by recognizing those factors, we can start to address them on a broader scale. We can work to create a society that is more supportive, more understanding, more equipped to deal with mental health issues and the dangers of unchecked superstition.
It's about prevention, isn't it?
It is.
Recognizing the warning signs and intervening before it's too late.
Absolutely. And that requires a collective effort. It requires us to be more aware, more compassionate, more willing to reach out to those who might be struggling.
We can't just turn a blind eye to the darkness, can we?
We can't.
We can't pretend that these things don't happen.
We can't afford to. The cost of inaction is simply too high. The lives of Faustina Setti, Francesca Soavi, and Virginia Cacioppo
are a testament to that.
Their stories serve as a stark reminder.
They do.
Of the human cost of evil, of the devastating consequences of unchecked darkness.
And they challenge us to do better, to be better, to be more vigilant, more compassionate, more dedicated to creating a world where these tragedies are less likely to occur.
It's a challenge we must all accept.
We must.
For their sake and for our own.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Okay.
It's been a journey, to say the least.
It has.
A disturbing one at times, but also a thought-provoking one.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
Explored a lot of dark corners.
Yeah.
But I hope in the end it's been an enlightening experience for our listeners.
I hope so, too. And as always, we encourage you to continue exploring, delve deeper into the sources we've discussed.
Please do.
And to come to your own conclusions about the case of Leonarda Cianciulli, soapmaker of Correggio. Because in the end, that's what these deep dives are all about.
That's right.
Sparking curiosity, encouraging critical thinking, and empowering you to navigate the complexities of the world around us.
Until next time,
yeah.
Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.